The Wall Street Bets silver squeeze. This is what could be coming after this GameStop squeeze. Although the GameStop squeeze, I don't think is going to be over for at least another week. They're still holding shares, the um, and the hedge funds are still short like 100+% from from what I hear on the street from my friend Diamond Hands. This is Brian Lewis with MMT Investing, and things just changed. So I'm coming to you from sunny Florida. Got some palm trees going. Um, yeah, I guess I'll just look at silver in general, and then talk about the fundamentals of the silver squeeze, and then talk about sort of the different investments and risks that would be related to that. Um, yeah, so this is not investment advice. Let's go. All right, so this is the 2020 crash here, and you can see this is a pretty standard thing when there's a huge liquidity squeeze. Um, and you get a big stock market sell off, silver will pull down with the stock market. That's really typical. And that's not because people want to sell their silver, it's because they have margin calls on the stocks and they have to sell whatever they have to cover it. So like the big funds sell silver and it pulls down. But you can see silver rebounded pretty quick after that, and that's also pretty typical. Um, and what it looks like here is, I mean, silver is just kind of floating around doing crazy stuff for a while. It's hard to figure out where it was going. But now we have a couple of pretty solid checks along a bull market support trend line here. And so I guess the activity that I would expect, regardless of a squeeze or anything like that, just the general chart pattern that I'm looking at, just looks like we'll get another little pop and then probably just kind of flag back over to the trend line and just kind of continue the bull market. It looks like a pretty basic like bull market support line, and that could run for as long as we have uh, market conditions that are. What's good for silver is increasing growth and increasing inflation. If you have both of those, that's really good for silver, and that's basically what we've had this whole time. Is the growth coming off the collapse and the whole virus situation, and also the inflation of the government printed stimulus checks, which was kind of counteracting the international banks not loaning very much money out. So there's kind of like a deflationary environment of the international banks that used to make all the dollars are, like tightening down, and they're still tightening down now. But now we have the government coming out with MMT and printing their own money through the stimulus checks. And it looks like there's another round of stimulus checks coming. It looks like growth is still increasing. So this is a pretty standard kind of bull market conditions for silver. And that could run for, I don't know, uh, until it just switches. I mean, they could like cancel the stimulus checks, or like this GameStop squeeze probably will run for another week or two, until it like goes parabolic and then probably comes back down after that. Um, but yeah, the GameStop squeeze is still on, so probably everyone that's holding in that squeeze is not going to be coming out of there until the next couple of weeks, and then after that, uh, it's likely that there's a squeeze on physical silver, because that's really the only fundamental squeeze that makes sense right now. I mean, there's a bunch of talk about other stocks that are shorted, but there's no other short like the GameStop short where they're like 140% short, and they're naked short like beyond the number of shares that even exist. It's fraud. Like this just exposed the giant fraud and like did the math backwards against them. Um, so I mean that like the GameStop squeeze could blow the freaking markets up. They could shut the stock market down or something like that. It's completely possible that this like makes things crazy. But um, But if the next squeeze is buying up all the physical silver, then that wouldn't really matter that much. And then, if we run out, who knows, like either right now or say like 5 months out or something, if we get another liquidity kind of squeeze and another pullback on the stock market like this, like, silver would pull back with it probably. But if there's a squeeze on, I mean, it could be going like parabolic, and a pullback could just be like a little bit of sideways stuff in the middle of parabolic up stuff. So um, it's kind of hard to predict the chart, but I mean, you can see here that we've got a trend line that is pretty clean and makes sense, and we're getting upward movement right now off of it. So that's like 2 or 3 support hits right there on a good line. And it probably just kind of swings up a bit, and then it'll probably do like another bullish pennant, and then either stay above the trend line or it'll get support if it comes down to it. That's the kind of movement I'm looking at on silver, as long as we're in the increasing growth and increasing inflation conditions, which it looks like it'll be like that for a while. And then if we get a silver squeeze, it's going to go parabolic. So that's the general idea. I did want to mention, I guess this is the paper silver price. So this is like contracts that are traded in the stock market, and there's supposedly the contract has an ounce of silver behind it, but that is not true. Like there's way more paper contracts than there are ounces of silver, and then like half the silver in the world is monetary, and like the other half is all industrial. So the way that the short squeeze works for silver is you buy up all the monetary silver, and then that will expose, like if every paper silver contract demands physical delivery, like just if every freaking person in the world tries to buy one silver coin, like that's way more silver than there is. And so like it could happen in a hurry where they just like won't sell silver. It'll just like the price will start shooting up and they'll stop selling it. Um, and then you just expose that the paper contracts are not backed by silver, and then the SLV could get in trouble because the SLV is a bunch of paper contracts. It's the ETF, and that custodian is JP Morgan, who has vaulted like half of the monetary silver in the world. JP Morgan has, which is whatever it is, like a quarter of all the silver. And so like a ton of the silver contracts are supposedly like for silver that's still in the ground that hasn't even been mined yet or whatever, and they're most likely printing just more paper shares than there is silver. Just like this GameStop squeeze caught them, shorting shares they didn't even have. They're just like printing shares and shorting them, and selling them short on the GameStop squeeze. So this is the same kind of thing, exposing a fraud, but also it's a bunch of stock market contracts. So the physical silver price, I was in Singapore during this crash, and I was trying to buy silver back there. The silver was around like $12 an ounce or something like that. So I went to Bullion Star in Singapore, and like it was nowhere near that. The cheapest silver they had available was $25 an ounce, while the paper silver is $11. So they can be pretty far apart. So the actual physical silver now is like 30 an ounce, and I mean, it really went from like 24 at the bottom to just like 30 now. Like the physical silver, that's all it did this whole time. Like this movement here is the paper silver prices in the market, in the stock market. But they're not really backed by ounces of silver, and actually buying the physical silver is way less volatile, but it is bull market conditions. So that's the idea, is the SLV ETF would, if there's a short squeeze, like it would go up because silver's going up. But when it got to the point that it got exposed that there's no silver backing the freaking paper silver, once all the physical silver is bought up and there's no freaking silver backing all the paper, like the SLV could completely blow up and go to zero. JP Morgan could be like on the hook for fraud, and who knows what happens. And then the physical could be going parabolic as like the paper silver goes to zero potentially. So I would say physical silver is the squeeze. Like buying physical silver is what causes the squeeze. So that is the main thing to do. The SLV you could play around with, but that I think eventually goes to zero, just because it'll just expose kind of the fraud on the paper silver. This is not financial advice or legal fraud allocations, all hypothetical and entertainment purposes. And then stocks like First Majestic, which is AG. This is a silver miner. and it's freaking just already started going parabolic. So I think the hype is out on this already, and silver miners like can go like 10x. You know, when silver's going up, the miners can go way higher. And there's a bit of a short squeeze on First Majestic itself. There's a lot of short shares on First Majestic. So like this one is my favorite silver miner for several reasons. Like they have like most everyone else that produces silver, it's just kind of a byproduct of mining gold or mining other metals. But First Majestic is an actual silver mining company. It's really the only one that focuses on silver mines, and they mine silver for silver, and everything else is a byproduct. So they are like the real silver miner. They're Canadian. They have mines in Mexico. They have good jurisdictions for American traders. Um, and they also mint their own silver coins. So like on firstmajestic.com, you can get coins from them, and that's not promotion for them, but I bought coins from them, and their prices are pretty much lower than anybody else's. Like if you just want to get coins to your house, just order some silver bars or something like that. Um, they have the best prices. And then, you know, I tried to set up a retirement account that I could vault silver in Singapore inside of my retirement account, and it's very complicated legally to set that account up, and there's also limitations on which coins that you can hold. So like these First Majestic coins, I don't think you'd be able to hold in a retirement account at all, or a foreign one. Like you have to get like, you know, Canadian maple leafs or something like that. There's just certain coins that you're allowed to hold in a retirement account. But if you're just buying silver, just cash to have at your house, like this is probably my favorite option. Um, anyway, yeah, this is not promotion. There's tons of places that you can buy silver, but just make sure you're getting real silver. And yeah, this is super interesting to watch because there's hype about First Majestic getting short. Well, I'll do another video on this one, but there's like short squeeze hype on First Majestic, but buying the miners and buying SLV is not the squeeze. You have to buy physical silver to do the squeeze, and then you can speculate on this stuff as well at the same time. But buying physical silver is the squeeze. That's the point. That's the point of this video. And then also the GameStop squeeze is still on. Um, People are not out of this GameStop squeeze. I know that the news is saying that this squeeze is over, and it's not. People are holding, and the hedge funds are still 100 something plus percent short. Like people are not going to start closing their positions out until that short percentage goes like down below 50% or somewhere. So like this thing over the next week or two has the chance to go freaking parabolic. It has the chance to bankrupt like the um, Melvin Capital. The hedge fund went bankrupt on Thursday, and they got bailed out, and Citadel bought them out. So like there's you know, insider trading and fraud allegations, and um, yeah, you know, the Robin Hood, the whole SEC thing. Like there's a ton of crazy stuff going on now, and everyone's saying like, oh, that was crazy, like past tense, like the squeeze is over, like oh, they did illegal stuff and got out of all their shorts, and it's not true. Like they didn't get out of their shorts. People people were trading and like trying to buy or sell just like one share of GameStop was like the sell price. There's screenshots of it. Like the sell price was 200 and the buy price is 5,000. Like the next available share is being held by Wall Street Bets people with a limit of 5,000. Like that's the next available share. And like that spread, there's screenshots of one of the other platforms. It was like $999 was the next available share, something like almost $10,000. So like there's no shares to trade. The brokerages didn't have the cash reserves to cover the volatility. That's why like platforms like E-Trade froze up because they couldn't cover the freaking transactions. There were no shares available. There wasn't liquidity available for the amount of volatility because people are trading options and stuff. And so like it's a big mess, and it's not past tense. It's on. It's still on. And yeah, anyway, that has the potential to blow up the freaking stock market. and who knows? Like we could have a crash related to this over the next couple of weeks, or uh, or they just like cheat and steal from everybody, and the stock goes back down. Um, Whatever, like they just lie about it and print money, and I don't know. It's possible they do some illegal stuff and either don't get away with it or do. They probably do. Um, so we'll see how the GameStop squeeze plays out, but that is all paper stuff. Like the stocks are paper contracts, and there's more stocks in the freaking market than there actually are stocks from the company. Like it's fraudulent, like naked shorting, where they're just like printing freaking shares, like the hedge funds printing shares and just selling them into the market. It's not even real shares. And so I don't know if they're going to investigate that. That's what should be investigated. Like naked shorting should be illegal. I think it is illegal, but um, yeah. Anyway, like this has the potential to be a bigger news story in a week or two than it was this week. So I guess talking about silver, like that does put silver maybe at a bit of risk. Like if everything sells off, silver could pull back. But if it does, oh yeah. So this is the S&P. We just kind of broke out of this channel and started crashing the last couple of days while all this stuff is going crazy. So I mean, there could be a ton of insider selling happening on the stock market. Like we could have a major pullback now from everything that's going on, especially if the squeeze continues. And it not necessarily even insider selling, like hedge funds that are short like have to sell whatever they have to sell in order to cover the short positions that they're trying not to close out of. But if they get squeezed, like they'll have to sell everything and use all their money and go bankrupt. And like the brokerage is supposed to force them to close their positions when they're bankrupt. But they went bankrupt this week, and like the big one Melvin went bankrupt this week, and they got bailed out, and so they're trying to get out of the short squeeze again. But but yeah. Anyway, right now, the next week or two could get crazy in the markets. It could rip down possibly. Um, GameStop can still go parabolic over the next couple of weeks, like to 5,000 maybe or something insane. That could happen, and if it rips down, silver could uh, pull down with it, just because it tends to do that. Like when the market sells off hard, silver will sell off hard too, just because everything sells off. Um, Although this is not like a banking liquidity squeeze, like this was a liquidity squeeze, where you have to sell off. But this is pretty much the same thing. Like it's a liquidity squeeze on a bunch of big funds because they're short on this like infinity squeeze, and so they're gonna have to sell everything against the squeeze. Um, if it does like blow up to infinity, it could rip the market way down. So yeah, that's kind of heads up. Um, and even if the market does rip way down, I don't know if physical silver would rip way down or not. But anyway, that's just kind of a heads up on the whole market conditions now. Um, and so, well, I did like a little S&P video like 2 days ago as this was starting, and it like froze up and I lost it. But I mean, there's a couple of targets from the chart that I'm looking at here. Like the S&P could pull back to the top of the volatility range here, and if it just pulls back and finds support on top of this volatility range, like that would be pointing to like a freaking parabolic bubble in the S&P. Like if it supports up here, like then the freaking stock market's going to the moon. As long as we're in our current conditions, and probably more likely than that, it looks like it's going to pull back into like this kind of support area down here. But if like this infinity squeeze goes to freaking infinity, like 10,000 or something over the next couple weeks, and literally breaks the stock market, and they have to close trading and who knows what, like this is a downward kind of target that I've had there for a while on the other end of the parabola. on the volatility range. So that's just like things could get freaking crazy. The volatility is up. It's up, and it looks like it is forming a pattern where it's trying to go higher right now. If you zoom in on the VIX, might be like an hourly or something, or 15-minute. Yeah, so yeah, check out the VIX is forming higher lows, and it's driving up. So the VIX was increasing the whole end of that bull run at the top of the stock market. VIX was increasing while it was running up, which is a dangerous sign. And it's forming higher lows at a very high. It's at 30s or something. So there's a potential for big downside right now. And there's also the potential to get support at a super high volatility level and just go volatile up and crash up. But it looks like the stock market's about to crash either up or down, like now, right now, over the next week. And yeah, it could get pretty nutty. So that's a huge zone to watch on the S&P, as if it breaks back down into the volatility range, or if it stays above in like bubble land up there, will be huge. And then, yeah, if it does rip inside the volatility range, silver prices could pull back with a stock market crash, and then there could be a really good silver buying opportunity. Although the physical probably will not get that cheap. Like it'll just be like the paper silver shares that come down. So, all right, that's the squeeze. It's physical. It's physical. It's shiny. We like this metal. Yeah, silver squeeze. I don't know if there's anything else. Whatever. This is not financial advice. No fraud allegations. Just hypothetical word on the street from my friend Diamond Hands. So that's what's up. Physical silver. Yep. Vaults or at your house or whatever. But yeah, physical silver squeeze.